Okay. Hello, John. Irene. Today I'm going to present why did the European Community evolve into the European Union in 1992 and what drove the deeper integration. Before we talk about the details, we should start about the overview, right? To see the whole picture of this topic. So yeah, the overview of the European Community. It It is originated in aftermath of World War II when the European leaders sought to prevent future conflicts and war and rebuild the devastated economies through cooperation between European countries. And the first step was the European Coal and Steel Community, or ECSC, in 1951, proposed by Robert Schuman and designed by Jean Monnet. By integrating the steel and coal industry boom in Western Europe. This success led to the Treaty of Rome in 1957, which created the European Economic Community, or EEC, and the Euratom. Yeah, the EEC aimed to establish a common market, promote the economic growth, and encourage closer political ties through economic integration, while the European Atomic Energy Community, or Euratom, was created in 1958 to establish a common market among member nations for trade in nuclear materials and equipment. So yeah, these three communities, the ECSC, EEC, and Euratom, were separate communities that together boom from the European communities. I said European communities. And next is the important point. Because of the Maastricht Treaty, which is signed in 1992 and effective in 1993, it transformed the EEC, which is part of the European communities, into the European Community. So it's like the Maastricht Treaty renamed, transformed the EEC into EC, which is later become part of the EU in 2009. Yeah. Whew. Skip. Okay. We talk about the overview, right? And now let's talk about the economic foundation from the EEC to the European Community. So the EEC was established by the Treaty of Rome in 1957, with the main goals was economic, as I mentioned, right? It created the common market, promote the economic growth, and prevent the conflict through the interdependence or cooperation or coordination between members countries. And the most thing that I should talk about is the Single European Act of 1986, which is marked the crucial step. It aimed to complete the single market and expanded the qualifying majority voting, making the decision making more efficient and faster. Although the Single European Act focused on the economics, it also had the important political consequences. It demonstrated that deeper integration was both possible and necessary. And it created the momentum for the further cooperation by increasing the economic integration. It also highlight the limitation of the coordination without stronger political and institutional structures. So yeah, as a result, the EEC is increasingly functioned as a more than just an economic organizations, paving the way for the transformation into the European community. Whew. So someone might confuse why was the majority voting needed to complete the single market. So I will answer this question because the single market aims to remove all the barriers to the free movement of goods, services, and people. To achieve this, the European community needed to pass the huge number of laws. Okay. Before 1986, most decisions required unanimous voting, which is mean, if the one country disagree or say no, the law couldn't pass. So the integration slowed down and got stopped because countries often block laws to protect national industries. To solve this problem, the qualifying majority voting, can solve this problem. And the Single European Act in 1986 introduced this QMV, or qualifying majority voting for the single market rules. Yay! This means law could pass if the majority countries support them or say yes, And a single country could no longer block the progress, and decision making become more faster and more efficient. Woohoo! By the way, the end of the Cold War and the need of political union, which is the next that I talk about. The most significant external driver of change was the end of the Cold War. During the Cold War, European security was largely managed by NATO and United States. This allowed EEC to remain focused on economics while foreign and security policy stayed national. After 1989, once the Cold War ended, this system no longer worked well because the Europeans faced new and different problems that could not be handled by individual states acting alone. So let's talk about the problems that the Euro faced back then. First is the instability in Eastern Europe. Communist regimes collapsed across the Eastern Europe. Many countries faced weak governments, economic crisis, and the unclear borders. This created political and economic instability close to the EU borders, which required coordination rather than isolated national response. And next issues is about the conflict in Balkans. In 1990s, violent wars broke out in former Yugoslavia. These conflicts showed that the Europe couldn't manage nearby crisis effectively without coordination. So the EU's failure to act decisively exposed the weakness of purely national foreign policies. And next issues is about the new security threats. After the Cold War, threats were no longer mainly about the nuclear war between the superpowers. Instead, the Europe faced the ethnic conflict, the terrorism, the migration, and the crimes. These problems crossed borders and couldn't be solved by one country alone. And the last issues that I will talk about is the uncertainty after German reunification. So yeah, the reunification of German rights concern among the European states about Germany's economic and political power and the potential imbalance between the Europe. So it's like they 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 afraid the rise of the Germany and the Germany power. Yeah, so the deeper European integration was seen as a way to anchor to make the German anchor firmly within the collective European framework. Yeah. Next, I'm going to talk about the economic motivations, the single markets, and the euro. The economic success itself become a driver, deeper integration, right? The competition of the single market increased economic interdependence, but also exposed risks from the currency instability. To protect the single market, member states agreed to establish the economic and monetary union, including the creation of the euro. The introduction of the euro under the Maastricht Treaty represented a major step in sovereignty sharing. It transformed the European community into a much deeper form of the integration than the original EEC. Thus, the economic motivations pushed the integration forward while requiring the stronger, deeper, closer political institutions. Okay, next, the Maastricht Treaty from the European Community to European Union. The Maastricht Treaty of 1992 marked the formal creation of the European Union. Under the Maastricht, the European Community became the core pillar of the EU, and new policy areas were added, including the foreign policy and security policy through the Common Foreign and Security Policies, or CFSP, right? However, the Maastricht reflected a compromise, while the economic and monetary integration became more supranational. Foreign and security policy remained intergovernmental. This design allowed deeper integration while preserving national sovereignty, explaining why the EU developed as a hybrid political system. Yay! And the Maastricht Treaty was compromised because member states agreed to deepen integration, creating the EU and the euro, but keep the sensitive areas like foreign policy under the national control. It's resulting in mixed system of the supranational and intergovernmental pillars. So next, talk about the supranational and vs the intergovernmental debate. The structure of the EU reflects an ongoing debate between supranationalists and intergovernmentalists. Okay. The supranationalists argue that the strong EU institutions to the enhance effectiveness, while the intergovernmentalists feared loss of sovereignty especially in foreign policy. The Maastricht Treaty institutionalized this compromise, which continues to shape the EU today. In conclusion, to the evolution from the EEC to the European Community and ultimately to the European Union in 1992 was driven by economic success, geopolitical change, and institutional necessity. Calm down, calm down. The EEC's economic integration created a pressure for political coordination. And yeah, the end of the Cold War exposed the limits of national action, and Maastricht institutionalized deeper integration while preserving sovereignty. Understanding the distinction between the EEC, and the EU is essential to understanding why the European integration deepened in 1992. So this is just reference, and thank you for listening.